despise me, clad in the human body, not knowing my higher nature as the Lord of all existences. So in this verse, Shri Krishna describes what happened to those who do not attain him. These are people who despise and insult the Supreme Soul. Shri Krishna explains a very important principle in this verse. Who is the Supreme Soul? The Supreme Soul, look at the last word in the verse, Bhuta Maheshwaram, meaning the Lord of all existences. He who is great is Ishwar, the Lord, Manchasav Ishwaracham Maheshwara, and he who is Ishwar, Lord of all existences, is Bhuta Maheshwaram, the Lord of all existences. So Bhutanam Maheshwara iti Bhuta, Maheshwara tam Bhuta Maheshwaram. Purushutta defines Bhuta Maheshwaram as Purushaya Vidam Savamed Bhutam Yadna Bhavayama, meaning he who is there, and he who is going to be there. And the Supreme Soul is all three of these. It is something that a person who is performing penances, a person on the path of spirituality, and all of us must remember that in our bodies, in our human bodies, there is a Bhuta Maheshwaram, the Lord of all existences, residing there, who not only resides there, but is working there, and we must try and see and experience this Bhuta Maheshwaram, the Lord of all existences. This is because those who are deluded and decadent cannot see him as he is not visible to them. One can only recognize him with a capital H if one can see the Supreme Soul residing within oneself. A person who is deluded is one whose God is only somewhere high up in the sky or only stuck in the four walls of the temple. The Gita says that such people are deluded who cannot see the Supreme Soul residing within the human body. It is very nice that people go to worship idols, and it's very beautiful that people go to pray to God in the temple, but while worshipping idols, the human being should feel that the God residing in the idols is also in all four directions, pervading here, there and everywhere, and resides in all human beings. Then the high-level question comes that if the Supreme Soul resides in human beings, then who resides in me? The Supreme Soul is even in me. Aham Brahmasmi, I am God. This is one route by which one comes closer to himself through the world. The second route is the route of knowledge and a route of Mahavir Swami, where one finds the Supreme Soul residing in oneself first after reaching a state of purity. Here one realizes the soul, and when one attains his self with a capital S, then one sees the Supreme Soul everywhere. The question then arises that if the Supreme Being is in oneself, then who resides in other creatures? God is the second person, the third person, and in all creatures. Narsi Mehta said, Atul Brahman ma ektu Shri Hari Jujva Rupa Anantase. There is nothing but Brahman everywhere, and everything is a form of Brahman. Therefore, there are two ways of seeing the Supreme Soul. Seeing the Supreme Soul in all other creatures first, and then seeing the Supreme Soul within oneself, or seeing the Supreme Soul within oneself first, and then seeing the Supreme Soul in all other creatures. The Supreme Soul takes the form of human beings and comes in front of us, and the Supreme Soul resides in all human beings. In fact, the Supreme Soul does not only reside in all human beings, but the Supreme Soul is everywhere in the world. This is the perspective that the Supreme Soul is giving here in this 11th verse. Everything that is happening is the Supreme Soul. The Supreme Soul comes in the form of our friends, and the Supreme Soul also comes in the form of our enemies. And the question arises of what our duty is. If the Supreme Soul comes as our friends, then we welcome our friends and give them presents because they are a form of the Supreme Soul. But if the Supreme Soul comes in the form of our enemies, then only by resisting them can we pass the supreme test of the Supreme Soul coming in front of us in the form of our enemies. This is because the Supreme Soul takes various forms and comes in front of us in order to test us. When the Supreme Soul comes in front of us in the form of our friends, then we should welcome them, and when the Supreme Soul comes in front of us in the form of our enemies, then we must resist them, and only if we do so will we get the blessings of the Supreme Soul. There are two very beautiful events involving Arjun in the Mahabharata. One is the Kirat Arjuna. Has anyone heard of this? The Kirat Arjuna, which is an event in the Mahabharata, but different epic poems were written from this. While the Pandavas were exiled in a forest, Arjun went to perform penances in the jungle to attain knowledge of the divine weapon, which is Shastra Vidya. There in the jungle, he meets an aborigine and a wild mountaineer by the name of Kirat. Kirat challenges Arjun, and they both begin fighting with each other. This battle goes on for a long time, and Arjun fought very fiercely. In the end, he finds out that the body of Kirat is an incarnation of Shivji, who is the Supreme Soul personified. Arjun resisted this very form very nicely, and therefore Shivji became pleased and gave Arjun his powerful weapons, including the Astra Vidya. This is a very symbolic fact. If Arjun in the first chapter of the Gita would have been there, then he would have said that he does not want to kill anyone, and that before he does that, they should kill him first. Would he then have been given these weapons? No. Arjun resisted his enemy. Shivji came in the form of Kirat the mountaineer to fight with Arjun, and Arjun fought Kirat and defeated Kirat. Because Arjun defeated Kirat, the Supreme Soul became happy and blessed Arjun. If we defeat our enemies, then the Supreme Soul becomes happy and the Supreme Soul blesses us. If a father and a son are sitting at a table playing chess, and the son defeats the father, then the father will become pleased that, wow, my son beat me, he must be so good and so special. But if the son thinks that his father is sitting there, and therefore he should lose all his pieces to let the father win, then the fun of the game goes away. One should behave with other people according to the forms in which the Supreme Soul has sent these people in. Therefore, even while resisting an enemy, Shri Krishna is saying a very unique thing here, that in that resistance, the thought of violence will go away, because you are resisting your enemy not in the form of a person, but you are resisting your enemy in the form of an attitude. You are resisting the attitude, but you have to see the Supreme Soul inside your enemy. You do not have a personal grievance towards this person, but you are opposing that person's tendency. There is no feeling of hate in this opposition, and therefore you have no bondage to hatred. You oppose the person after seeing the Supreme Soul in that person. When this very same Supreme Soul came in front of Arjun once again as Arjun's friend, then Arjun accepted himself as a pupil of the Supreme Soul, his friend Shri Krishna. Shivji came in the form of his enemy, but he was still the Supreme Soul, be it Vishnu or Mahesh Shiva, they are both the same. One should behave with the form of God according to the form in which it comes in front of you. Arjun is an individual soul and our representative. This is the message of the Mahabharata. The Supreme Soul can come in any form, and Arjun, there's a hand out there, and Arjun has made any form, and Shri Krishna is telling Arjun the very thing in the Gita. The war of the Mahabharata that is taking place in the plan of is a plan of the Supreme Soul. Arjun had made efforts to ensure that the war would be prevented, but the war was not prevented. Arjun would now have to accept it as God's will and God's wish. The Supreme Soul had come to Arjun in the form of war, and Arjun should therefore face the challenge and defeat the Kauravas. The Supreme Soul even resides in Duryodhan, and yet Arjun should kill him. The Supreme Soul also resides in Dushashan, and yet Arjun should kill him. The Supreme Soul also resides in Karna, and Arjun should kill him. Only then will Arjun pass this test set to him by the Supreme Soul. I know that it's very easy to describe, but if you sit down and think about this in silence, then it's very difficult to separate these threads tied in a knot. This is because one thinks about how one can kill someone if the Supreme Soul resides in that person, and if one has to kill that person, then how can they see the Supreme Soul in that person? Shri Krishna combines these two together. This is how Arjun should go to war, and this is the way to be successful in life, and the way to be successful in the test of the Supreme Soul. Challenging circumstances are going to come, and you can either give up under the circumstances, or you can face the circumstances. If you give up, then you will be nowhere, and if you face the circumstances, then there will be difficulties, but because you can win, but the feelings of hatred arise, then venom remains. That is why the Supreme Soul says that you have to win and that you cannot give up. You have to contest and to fight, and you should not give up your efforts. But you should make efforts while seeing the Supreme Soul there, so that the thorn of venom becomes blunt. You should oppose the attitude and not the person. This is the root principle. No matter how much the person is your own, if he has come with the wrong attitude, the Shri Krishna says that you should oppose that person. Just think that the Supreme Soul is testing you here. Do not lower your head, because if you lower your head, then these people will take advantage of you. People that do not understand the Gita ask that what kind of God is it that's telling Arjun to go to war? People keep asking this question. They keep saying that Arjun is so good that even though the other people are bad, that he regards them as his brothers, and despite their willingness to fight, he wishes to go to the jungle. They say that if a person wishes to live in society, then that person should be ashamed of living in society. These are the reasons that Arjuna has come up with in the first chapter. No matter how bad Duryodhana is, they still say this. Shri Krishna, on the other hand, says that despite the fact that Duryodhana is Arjuna's brother, Arjuna should kill him. This is because Duryodhana is standing there with a wrong attitude. It is very difficult to understand what Shri Krishna is saying here, and it is even more difficult to apply this in one's life. But a person who applies this in his life, then he attains victory and wealth, as is said in the 33rd verse of the 11th chapter of the Gita. Yatra yogeshvara krishna, yatra pata tanordana, tatra shri vijayo bhutuhi, juvani tirma savisachina. Therefore, Shri Krishna tells Arjuna, therefore you arise and gain glory, conquering your foes, enjoy a prosperous kingdom. By me alone are they slain already, be you merely the occasion, or Savyasachin, Arjuna. Srimad Ramanujaradi defines Bhutameshwaram, the Lord of Existences, as Sarvagnam Satya Sankalam Vittil Jagat Ke Karanam, means the sole cause of the entire universe, who is all-knowing and whose resolves are true. Everything that the Lord resolves is true, and there are no differences in it. Such is the Bhuta Maheshwaram, the Lord of all existences, and such is God. Have you ever thought about why we call God Bhagavan? What is the meaning behind calling God Bhagavan? Anyone know? What does Bhagavan mean? This is because we describe the Supreme Soul in two ways. The first is with a specific name, such as Ram, Krishna, Vaman, Narsi. All of these are specific names and specific incarnations. But Bhagavan cannot have any sectarian relations. If you say Krishna, then half the people will go away because they want nothing to do with Krishna and they're all performing worship of Ram or for Shivji. If you say Ram, then the other half of the people will go away. Saints have a very good example showing how lots of fights arose because of the names of God. In a village, the people decided that they would create a temple, and they raised a lot of funds for this. The temple was created, and it was a very beautiful temple. And the question arose of which idol would be seated in the temple. They placed an idol of Sri Ramchandraji. Some people would go to the temple, and some people would not go to the temple. The people who did not go to the temple were asked, why didn't they go to such a beautiful temple? Because it was created using, it was so beautiful, it was created, having raised so much funds. The building of the temple is beautiful, and there are such nice rooms and gardens in the temple. They were asked why they used to go, but when the idol of Sri Ramchandraji was placed there, they did not go to the temple anymore. The people answered that they performed worship for Shri Krishna, or they performed worship of Shivji, and therefore they had no reason to come to the temple. The organizers therefore removed the idol of Sri Ramchandraji and placed an idol of Radha Krishna in the temple. They raised more funds and incurred more expenses in order to do this. The people performing worship for Shri Krishna began coming to the temple, but the people performing worship of Sri Ram stopped coming to the temple. They said that they would not come to the temple. The organizers asked them why this was so, and they said they only performed penances for Sri Ram, and therefore they would not go to the temple of Shri Krishna, or that they performed penances for Shivji, and therefore they would not go to the temple. The organizers then placed an idol of Shakti, the goddess Durga, and then some people began coming to the temple, whereas others said that they would not go to the temple. They were asked why this was so, and when they gave their reasons, the organizers placed a shivling at the temple so that there were no forms. Now the organizers were powerless because they had spent a lot of funds buying all the different idols, and therefore they had got a rock and made a shivling out of it themselves. Then they placed this at the temple and asked all the people to come to the temple. The people said that they would not come inside because they are strict Vaishnavas, devotees of Vishnu, and they do not even mention the name of Shiva, and therefore they would not come to the temple. A lot of difficulties arose. They therefore decided to build a mosque in that place, and the Hindus said that they would not go there, and the Muslims said that they would go there because they are tied to it. The Hindus would not go there. The entire town had got together to build a temple, but they began separating themselves. The main organizers that were there began thinking, and a saint of high caliber who had helped Society of Lot was passing through the village. The saint asked, why such a nice concrete temple was built, but there's no idol inside? The organizers said that there was this question that if they placed an idol of Sri Ram in the temple, the people performing worship of Shri Krishna would go away. If they placed an idol of Shri Krishna in the temple, then the people performing worship of Sri Ram would go away. If they placed an idol of Mataji, the goddess Durga, then other people would go away, etc., etc. The organizers said that the people just keep creating divisions between one another, and asked the saint what they should do to make everybody in the village one. The organizers said that they created a temple to unite all the people in the village, And even though it's a beautiful building, the people in the village are not becoming one. They therefore asked the saint what they should do. You know what the saint said? The saint said that they should create a hotel because everyone in the town would come there. This is our illness. Because these names of God were given, the people created divisions between themselves, whereas if they were a hotel, then everybody in the town would come there to the hotel. What I mean to say is that people have created divisions between themselves over these specific names of Sri Ram and Shri Krishna. What does Bhagavan mean? Bhagavan means God or the Supreme Soul. Our scriptures say that 6 things can be called Bhag, the stem in Bhagavan. When we say Bhagavan, then we should remember who Bhagavan is. The Vishnu Purana scriptures says that Bhagavan is someone who has 6 things. Ishvarasya, Samagrasya, Dharmasya, Yashasya, Shriya, Gnan, Vairagachavya, Shanam Bhaga iti Ranaha. One who has total glory and wealth, dharma, fame, wealth, knowledge and detachment can be called Bhagavan, God. One who has total glory, dharma, fame, wealth, wisdom and detachment can be called Bhagavan, God. These 6 things are called Bhaj, and one who has all 6 is Bhagavan, God. The Supreme Soul knows and initiates dharma. If you wish to cultivate society, then you need certain things, and the principles that were created for this are dharma. Dharana dharma mitahu dharmo dharaya praja. Only when one performs actions and they become successful do they become famous. If a person has done wealth, then we call them dhanavan. If someone has kirti, celebrity, then we call them kirtavan. In the same way, if someone has bhaj, all the 6 qualities described above, then he is or she is Bhagavan. God has all 6 of these qualities, and therefore he is Bhuta Maheshwaram, the Lord of all existences. The Supreme Soul says in this verse that it's a matter of sorrow that the deluded do not recognize him clad in a human body. Shri Krishna uses the word mur to describe these people. What does mur mean? Anyone know? There's a difference between being mur, deluded, and being murk, stupid. Mur, deluded, and murk, stupid. Who can one call murk, stupid? Only one who knows nothing, is ignorant, and who does not understand anything. But people who are mur, deluded, are even more dangerous than people who are murk, stupid, and being mur, deluded is a more chronic disease. A person who is murk, stupid, knows that he does not understand anything, but a person who is mur, foolish, does not understand, yet he believes he knows everything. A person who is murk, stupid, can become knowledgeable one day, but there is lesser a possibility of someone who is mur, deluded, become knowledgeable. A person who is mur, deluded, despises the Supreme Soul clad in the human body and tries to negate the existence of God. A person who negates the existence of God is mur, deluded. The first reason why a person who is mur, deluded, negates the existence of God is because this person's ego comes in the way, that if the Supreme Soul is there, then the Supreme Soul would be greater than this person, whereas this person who is more deluded considers himself as better than everyone and thinks that nobody is greater than him. This person's mind is not prepared to accept God who is greater than him. A person who is more deluded gets his delusion when ignorance combines with egotism. A person who is murk, stupid, is only ignorant, but when the egotism comes into ignorance, then the person becomes more deluded. A person who is more deluded cannot accept that the Supreme Soul is greater than him. Secondly, the consciousness of a person who is more deluded is not focused on his development. Thinkers explain this very beautifully using analysis. If there is a piece of sugar candy, sakar, lying on the floor, and a group of ants come, then there is a person who can see this group of ants, but it's very doubtful whether the ants can see the whole of this person. This is because the consciousness of ants is not focused on the development. The attention of ants is only towards the sugar candy. The ants get the smell of the sugar candy sakar, and they follow the smell of the sugar candy. The human being can observe the ants and their presence, but the ants cannot observe the human being and the presence of the human being. This is because the consciousness of the ants is not focused on the development. If you are standing at the bottom of the Himalayas, then you cannot see the Himalayas in one view. In the same way, a more deluded person who does not have the Supreme Soul in his sight cannot accept the Supreme Soul. Thirdly, the Supreme Soul is so great and at such a high level, whereas the more ignorant the person is, then the lower that the person is. It is possible to see the bottom from the top, but it is very difficult to look at the top from the bottom. Therefore, when considering any topic that leads to wonder, The person who is more deluded says that there is no God. God says that these are all the reasons why a more deluded person despises God clad in a human body. If you are standing at the summit of a mountain, or even if you are in a cable car going down, cladding in the bottom of the mountain, but a person standing at the base, at the bottom of the mountain, cannot see the lights of each and every cars, buses and trucks. It is very easy to look down from a height, but it's very difficult to look up from the bottom. That is why a person who is more deluded cannot see God. Fourthly, a person who is more deluded is blinded by his own delusion, egotism and ignorance, whereas God is full of light. If someone is blind and looks towards light, then they will not be able to see anything, and it is very difficult for this blind person to carry on looking towards the light. That is why a person who is more deluded cannot accept God. He cannot see anything due to his blindness. Such a person is not able to see God. Shri Krishna describes what such blind people are like and what happens to their lives in the next verse. If you look at it from one perspective, then it's a very small thing that these people do not accept the existence of God. Even though they do not insult God, they do not accept the existence of God. But the next verse describes what happens to their lives.